Join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gampir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas gets you the latest on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ukraine, a very crucial visit. What has the Prime Minister said? What transpired during the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky? What are the key takeaways? We get you updates from on the ground with our correspondent joining us live from Kiev. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Our NATO bases in Europe under the threat of an imminent attack. We tell you what's brewing and why this question is being asked. A growing body of scientific evidence shows that microplastics are accumulating in organs, including the brain. As per a report, we tell you all that you need to know. The world's second largest diamond has been found. We tell you all about it. All this and more coming up tonight.
से दूर रहे लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं
Our top story tonight on Gravitas focuses on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ukraine. It has been called a landmark visit. After all, Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine marks the first time an Indian Prime Minister has set foot in Ukraine since the country gained independence in 1991. Talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, Prime Minister Modi has said that India has not been neutral. It is always on the side of peace.
किसी भी समस्या का समाधान रणभूमि में कभी भी नहीं होता है। समाधान का रास्ता बातचीत से ही निकलता है, डायलॉग से निकलता है, डिप्लोमेसी से निकलता है और हमने बिना समय गंवाए उस दिशा में आगे बढ़ना चाहिए। दोनों पक्षों को साथ बैठ करके इस संकट की घड़ी से बाहर निकलने के रास्ते तलाशने होंगे। मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाना चाहता हूं कि शांति के हर प्रयास में भारत अपनी सक्रिय भूमिका निभाने के लिए तैयार है। व्यक्तिगत रूप से मैं भी अगर इसमें कोई योगदान कर सकता हूं तो मैं जरूर करना चाहूंगा। एक मित्र के रूप में मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं।
Prime Minister Modi, in what many would call a deeply symbolic gesture, visited a martyrologist in Kiev dedicated to the children who have lost their lives in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. This war has claimed countless lives. Children are among the most innocent and heartbreaking casualties. According to the United Nations, at least 2,000 Ukrainian children have died in the ongoing conflict. On his official X account, Prime Minister Modi highlighted the devastating impact of the war on children, expressing his deep sorrow for the families who have lost their little ones. He said that the conflict is particularly devastating for young children, and his heart goes out to the families of the children who lost their lives. His words remind us of the human cost of conflicts. Remember, just last month, during his visit to Russia, Prime Minister Modi echoed similar sentiments. At the time, he stated that the death of children is very painful. In fact, India, under Prime Minister Modi, has maintained a delicate balance, engaging with both Russia and Ukraine. This visit to Ukraine, following his trip to Russia, places Prime Minister Modi in a unique position among global leaders. He is among the few leaders who has visited both sides since the war broke out. Prime Minister Modi's advocacy for peace and his repeated emphasis on the loss of innocent lives might be seen as a very important attempt to position India as, in fact, the Indian Prime Minister showed signs of this as well, following a visit to the statue of Mahatma Gandhi, along with Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev. The two leaders met at the Mariinsky Palace, the Ukraine president's official residence. The two leaders had talks that lasted around 3 hours. In fact, Prime Minister Modi has also offered to act as a friend to mediate the process, as he urged Zelensky to sit down for peace talks with Russia to end the war. In a press briefing, India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, revealed that much of the discussions between Prime Minister Modi and Volodymyr Zelensky revolved around the war, reiterating India's willingness to contribute in every possible way to facilitate an early return to peace. The minister also revealed that Ukraine sought India's role for global peace. The minister also mentioned that the two leaders discussed a range of other issues: trade, economic cooperation, defense, pharmaceuticals, agriculture and education. Notably, India and Ukraine signed 4 pacts in the fields of humanitarian assistance, agriculture, as well as medicine. As per the minister, Prime Minister Modi's conversation with the Ukrainian president also touched upon his earlier dialogue with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, with Prime Minister Modi also inviting the Ukrainian president for a corresponding visit to India. Earlier, marking Prime Minister Modi's arrival in the Ukrainian capital, members of the Indian diaspora greeted him with chants of Modi, Modi. A video posted on social media showed Prime Minister Modi waving to people in the crowd, some carrying small Indian flags to mark the Prime Minister's arrival there. Now, this visit also comes at a time when, on one hand, Moscow is making slow gains in eastern Ukraine. On the other hand, remember, Kiev is pressing ahead with a cross-border incursion into Russian territory. Let's now go straight across to our correspondent, Siddhant Sipul, who has been tracking all those developments on the ground in Kiev. Siddhant, if you can just get us up to speed with what went down between the meeting between the two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And one of the key takeaways being that the Indian Prime Minister has also invited the Ukrainian President to visit India. Tell us more about what the two leaders have stated regarding the war specifically.
Well, Molly, what a day I would say here in Kyiv. We just came out with a full 1 hour long press meet with President Zelensky. WION was present there in that press briefing, which was a no-holds-bar press conference in which he took every question possible. But the big takeaway from this visit of the Indian Prime Minister, he of course has now left the Ukrainian capital, will be the Indian continued commitment to make sure that this conflict, this war is resolved, and the message remained the same, a message that was talked about. The Indian Prime Minister gave the message to President Putin 2 months ago, and the same message was restated today as well to President Zelensky, that dialogue is the only way forward. He needs to sit together with the other side to have conversation, and essentially in terms of taking forward so that the region is stabilized. But in terms of the bilateral aspect, significant 4 pacts being signed, including on humanitarian assistance, on agriculture, and also in terms of how there can be cooperation in the medicines field. But all in all, it looks like this cooperation is going to go forward. Remember, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has invited President Zelensky to visit India as well. And in the press conference which he held earlier today with the Indian media, he said that he's looking forward to it, but he has other pressing issues, including stabilizing his country as well. But he was indeed quite excited and happy that the Indian Prime Minister, the leader of the world's largest democracy, is present, in fact was present here in Kyiv, and had conversations which he described as very good conversations with practical outcomes. In fact, one of the significant outcomes of the visit, he explained to us, was that he has offered to Indian side, the Indian Prime Minister, co-production of drones and other technologies, and he's keen that Indian companies set up their base as well. Of course, he was quite critical of President Putin, and of course he said that there is no indication from President Putin to have any peace in the region. But all in all, a fruitful day in terms of India-Ukraine relationship.
Indeed, Prime Minister Modi also offering his role as a friend to bring peace to Ukraine in that meeting with the Ukrainian president. We're leaving it there for the moment, Sathan. Thanks very much for joining us with those updates from on the ground. A very crucial visit, as we've been saying, coming at a time when there have been constant developments coming in from both sides. So moving on for now, as we've been telling you about the war raging on, both sides continuing to introduce new types of weapons as well, especially when it comes to drones, which has been a major feature in the war. Taking that further, Ukraine has now introduced a new unmanned ground robot known as the Fury or Lyot 2.0 that can actually enter enemy lines with a machine gun and also be used for reconnaissance roles, including helping identify enemy positions. As per a report by UK's Telegraph, this new land drone is entirely made in Ukraine and resembles a mini tank. It has the capacity to cover a distance of around 20 kilometers and can work autonomously for nearly 3 days. Amongst its key features being its armor, which can reportedly sustain the impact of bullets and small shells. As per reports, the land drone has been used by Ukraine's 12th Brigade in its missions as a decoy to draw enemy fire and subsequently identify their positions. On his Telegram account, Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov, highlighted the drone's importance in identifying Russian positions and helping give cover to Ukrainian troops during an assault. He further said that the land drone was easy to use, displayed command over automatic fire control both during the day and at night. Experts said the main advantage of this land drone, above all else, is by helping save lives of military personnel, especially for a country like Ukraine that is heavily short on manpower. They further highlighted that this new drone appears to be part of a broader goal of Ukraine to include unmanned ground vehicles in their military operations. At the NATO summit last month, Alexander Kamyshin, Ukraine's strategic industries minister, had highlighted that 2024 will be the year of land and unmanned land systems, while further stating that the country is allocating its resources towards creating a new robot army. So the Fury land drone may just be the first of many in Ukraine's robot army. NATO bases in Europe under the threat of an imminent attack? I'm asking that question because on Thursday, the NATO air base in the German town of Gelsenkirchen raised its security level. What triggered that response, you ask? Well, in a statement released on the social media platform X, the base said that the decision was based on intelligence information indicating a potential threat and that all non-mission essential staff have been sent home. A spokesperson for the base said that the threat level had been raised to Charlie, which is basically the second highest of 4 states of alert. It is defined as an incident that has occurred or intelligence has been received, indicating some form of terrorist action against NATO organizations or personnel as highly likely. They said that operations will continue at the base, which houses NATO's fleet of AWACS surveillance planes. But this is not the first time that a NATO base has had to upgrade its threat level this year. It's not even the first time this month. Last week itself, a German military base near Cologne was temporarily closed off after suspicions arose that its water supply had been tampered with in an act of sabotage. And as a result, German authorities opened investigation into possible sabotage at the army base near Cologne. The German military later gave the all clear, saying that test results had shown that the tap water was not contaminated. The same day, the Gelsenkirchen base also reported an attempted trespassing incident that prompted a full sweep of the premises. You see, ever since the war broke out in Ukraine, Western installations have lived in the fear of a potential attack. Several incidents on NATO territory have been treated as suspicious by analysts in recent years, among them being the severance of a vital undersea cable connecting Svalbard to mainland Norway in 2022. Just last month, we told you that several US military bases across Europe were put on a heightened state of alert. The level of force protection was raised to its second highest state, amid concerns that a terror attack could target US military personnel or facilities. The bases, including the U.S. Army garrison in Stuttgart, Germany, where the American European Command is headquartered, raised their alert level to Force Protection Condition Charlie. Other facilities in Germany, like the Ramstein Air Base, also urged the service members to remain vigilant on social media. At the time, one of the U.S. officials stationed at a European base had told American news outlets that they had not seen this threat level in at least 10 years. It usually means that the military had received an active, reliable threat. The employees were asked to be vigilant against attempts to collect on US activities, be extra mindful of conversations in public, and maintain a low profile so as not to be identified as a mark. It's not clear what intelligence triggered the heightened security, but at the same time, the German government brought in 580 international police officers to assist with the security alongside the German officers. For months now, NATO has warned of a campaign of hostile activities that it has attributed to Russia, including acts of sabotage and cyber attacks. In June, the NATO Secretary General had said that the Western military alliance saw a pattern evolving and that recent attacks were a result of Russian intelligence becoming more active. What does Russia have to say then? Moscow, of course, denies these charges. It has regularly accused NATO of threatening its security by increasing its supply of weapons, ammunition, and equipment to Ukraine. The West insists that provisioning Ukraine does not make them a party to the war, shrugging off Russia's repeated insistence otherwise. The question is the US-led military bloc growing increasingly paranoid? And if not, then who really is conspiring against the NATO's interests in Europe? Shifting focus for now, a gun-selling network allegedly linked to Houthis has been openly trading weapons on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, as per reports. You heard that right. After carrying out attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea, arms dealers based in Houthi-controlled Yemen have reportedly been using the social media site to buy and sell weapons. Weapons that, by the way, include rifles, handguns, and grenade launchers. Dozens of arms dealers based in the Yemeni capital Sana'a, which is controlled by the Houthis, are effectively using X as a shop front in a way. A number of pictures of assault rifles for sale have been posted on the platform. Many are even touting the guns under the logo of the Houthis. Pakistani-produced Glock pistols are also being sold on the platform for around $900 each. Weapons are being sold online at prices in both Yemeni and Saudi riyals. The words besides the weapons are designed to lure the buyers. The ads for the new weapons or for the weapons are mostly in Arabic and aimed at Yemeni customers. In the crisis-hit country, the number of guns is often said to outnumber the population by 3 to 1. And what's even more shocking is that some of the gun dealers' accounts have the verified blue ticks, which basically gives them increased prominence on the network. Just to be clear, ads for these weapons are not hidden in the depths of the dark web, where guns and other illegal items are usually traded. These are being advertised and traded now in plain sight, it seems, on X, a platform openly accessible to millions of people. Remember, the Houthis have been designated as a global terrorist group by the US after they started attacking and disrupting Red Sea shipping amid the Gaza war. The question is, how are these weapons being traded so openly? Is the Twitter CEO seeing this? You see, American companies are prohibited from trading, giving material support and facilitating transactions with the Houthis. Penalties include fines and being cut off from the US financial system. As for the Houthis, the US Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Lenderking, is not surprised. He says that the Houthis are actively leveraging social media to raise money, buy weapons, and facilitate the transfer of weapons. This is in addition to their fundraising and recruiting on the platform. So if they know what's stopping them from bringing an end to this? The arms dealers appear to have been trading on X for years. Some of their accounts predate Elon Musk's purchase of the platform in 2022. The gun sellers seem to make no secret of what they are really doing. And what's being done to stop this? How long will this continue for? Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepted the Democratic nomination for president on Thursday, with a rousing call to end the war in Gaza and to fight tyranny around the world. On the final and the most anticipated night of the 4-day convention, Harris promised to chart a new way forward as the presidential race enters the final lap. Take a look.
Chicago's United Center brimmed with energy and people. The arena's 23,500 seats were filled, and arena staff briefly blocked more people from entering the facility. Chants of Kamala and USA reverberated at Chicago's United Center as she took the stage.
On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Harris went directly at her Republican rival Donald Trump. She blamed him for the horrors some women have faced amid the implementation of strict state-level abortion laws.
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And one must asked, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women. We trust women. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
Kamala Harris vowed to bring back and sign a bipartisan border bill should she win the election in November.
I know we can live up to our proud heritage as a nation of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
Just hours before Kamala Harris made her speech, Trump visited the US-Mexico border in Arizona and called Harris a lazy border czar.
We had a border czar who was the border czar. She loved the title, but she didn't want to do the work because she's lazy, and probably more importantly than being lazy, she wants to have an open border.
Not only domestic issues, but international matters also were part of Kamala's speech. After days of protests from Palestinian supporters who were disappointed at not getting a speaking spot at the convention, Harris delivered a pledge to secure Israel, bring the hostages home from Gaza, and end the war in the Palestinian enclave.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Harris remembered her Indian-origin mother, Dr. Shyamala Gopalan. Teary-eyed, Harris highlighted how her mother, at 19 years of age, traveled the world alone from India to the US. She lauded her mother's unshakable dream to be the scientist who would cure breast cancer.
When she finished school, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris, a student from Jamaica. They fell in love and got married, and that act of self-determination made my sister Maya and me.
If successful, Harris stands to make history as the first woman to be elected as US President. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
If you thought the state of women's rights and freedom in Afghanistan has reached rock bottom, think again. Things are getting worse. There are new laws for women in Afghanistan now. The Taliban have issued a ban on women's voices and bare faces in public. Let me just say that again. It's a ban on women's voices and bare faces in public. How regressive can the law of the land be? You know what the aim is? To combat vice and promote virtue. The question is, which era are we living in, and why are women's rights and freedom being clamped down in such a way? While the world watches on, by the way. Let me just tell you more about these laws. They were issued after they were approved by the Supreme Leader. The Vice and Virtue laws published on Wednesday cover aspects of everyday life like public transportation, music, celebrations. For those of you who might not be aware, the Taliban had set up a ministry for the propagation of virtue and the prevention of vice after seizing power in 2021. In fact, the Taliban have been turning back the clock in Afghanistan, proving time and again that Taliban 2.0 is no different from the previous Taliban rule. It's a sorry state of affairs. Basic rights have been snatched away from women in Afghanistan. Let me ask you this. What does the word freedom mean to you? To be able to do what you feel like, when you feel like, to go where you want to make independent decisions? It could mean different things to different people, but for Afghan women and girls, the word in a way is no longer a part of their dictionary. They have forgotten what it's like to be free. Taliban 2.0 has taken Afghan women back in time. Taliban 2.0 is clearly no different from the earlier Taliban. The promises that were made sounded great, but they have all been broken one by one. In the latest, as per the new laws, it is mandatory for a woman to veil her body at all times in public, and that a face covering is essential to avoid temptation and tempting others. Clothing should not be thin, tight or short as per the rules, as per the laws. Women are obliged to cover themselves in front of non-Muslim males and females to avoid being corrupted. And there is more, by the way. According to the laws, a woman's voice is deemed intimate and so should not be heard singing, reciting, or reading aloud in public. It doesn't even stop at that. It is forbidden for women to look at men they are not related to by blood or marriage, and vice versa, as per the laws. Article 19, in fact, bans the playing of music, the transportation of solo female travelers, and the mixing of men and women who are not related to each other. The law also obliges passengers and drivers to perform prayers at designated times. According to the ministry website, the promotion of virtue includes prayer, aligning the character and behavior of Muslims with Islamic law, encouraging women to wear the hijab, and inviting people to comply with the 5 pillars of Islam. It also says the elimination of vice involves prohibiting people from doing things forbidden by Islamic law. According to a UN report released in September 2023, under the Taliban, the mental health of women in Afghanistan has worsened. As per the report, more than 2/3 of women in Afghanistan reported feelings of anxiety, isolation, and depression between April and June. In fact, last month, a UN report said the ministry was contributing to a climate of fear and intimidation among Afghans through the methods used to enforce the edicts. Media outlets have earlier also reported a surge in suicides by women in Afghanistan. Things have gone from bad to worse for Afghan women, to the extent that Afghan women are riddled with mental health problems, as per reports. They desperately want their rights to be protected. They urgently need help. But it seems that the countries that vouched for the Taliban have looked the other way, and the Taliban continue to make women's lives miserable. Moving on for now, India's premier probe agency, CBI, which is probing the alleged rape and murder of the Kolkata trainee doctor, is facing multiple challenges. The agency told the top court that their investigation was hindered by the altered crime scene. The CBI alleged that the state police did not seal the crime scene, and as a result, key evidence was destroyed. According to the CBI, the most shocking fact was that the FIR was lodged at 11:45 p.m. in the night, when the body was recovered soon after 9:30 a.m. The CBI alleges that the parents were informed by the deputy superintendent that their daughter is not well. When they reached, they said she had died by suicide. The CBI believes that the forensic team gathered evidence keeping in mind the suicide angle. The CBI's other challenge is that it took over the probe after the victim's body was cremated. Now the agency has no option available to do a second postmortem. They have to go by the postmortem report and the DNA test report. The probe agency is now left with the only option of a lie detector test to arrive at some conclusion. They have performed the lie detector test on the main accused. The CBI will also conduct a polygraph test on the former RG Kar Medical College principal, Sandeep Ghosh, and 4 other doctors. On the 9th of August, they were on duty when the incident took place. The agency is yet to find out about the involvement of other suspects in the case apart from the main accused. Here's the chronology of the events so far presented by the CBI in the top court. According to sources, on the 9th of August, around 9:30 a.m., a first-year doctor on duty tried to look for the victim. She found the victim in an unconscious state in the seminar hall. It was then that the hospital authorities were informed. At 10:10 a.m., a call was received by the police station that claimed a semi-clad woman was found in an unconscious state. The police station register mentions the incident as entry number 542. At 10:30 a.m., the police reaches the hospital and secures the scene of crime. At 10:52 a.m., the parents were informed about the incident. The officer in charge, along with the detective department, reaches the scene of crime at 11 a.m. At 12:44 in the afternoon, the victim was declared dead, and the forensic team reached the crime scene at 1 p.m. Around the same time, the parents reached the hospital and meet the officials. The victim's dead body was shown to the parents. 10 minutes after that, at 3 p.m., the parents lodge an oral complaint and demand a post-mortem in the presence of a judicial magistrate. After nearly an hour, the judicial magistrate begins the inquest proceedings. At around 5 p.m., the doctors begin a protest, and around 6 p.m., the post-mortem begins, which lasts for nearly an hour. Between 8:30 to 10:45 p.m., the forensic team collects nearly 40 samples, and the body is handed over to the family after videography. After nearly 14 hours, at around 11:45 p.m., the police registers the FIR. We now shift our focus to the state of Tripura in India, which is battling severe flooding. It's also the same story on the other side of the border in Bangladesh. Our next report getting you the details. Take a look.
A red alert has been issued in 8 districts of Tripura as the state battles severe flooding. Most of Tripura's prominent rivers are flowing either above the danger levels or above the critical level. The river Gomti, which is the state's main river, has crossed the extreme danger level in many places. The flood has damaged infrastructure. Over 1,000 houses have been damaged, either fully or partially. Hundreds of trees have been uprooted. Many of them have blocked important highways. Crops have been damaged. Livestock has been killed. All education institutions in Tripura remain closed. Several trains have been cancelled too. The heavy rainfall has also triggered landslides. 10 people were buried under the rubble after landslides hit the Santir Bazaar area. All in all, over 1.7 million people have been affected. Reports say so far at least 23 people have died and some 65,000 people have been displaced. The Indian Army has said that 80 of its personnel have joined the rescue efforts. 11 teams of the National Disaster Relief Force are also working on the ground. 4 Air Force helicopters have also been pressed into action. Tripura's Chief Minister Manik Saha assessed the flood damage on Friday. He also met the affected families. The Indian government has extended a relief package of $4.8 million for Tripura. Across the border in Bangladesh, the situation is no better. Districts like Comilla and Feni have been inundated. Feni, which is about 100 kilometers northwest of Chittagong, is the worst hit. It alone has recorded some 186 millimeters of rainfall. Not too far from Feni, the town of Parashuram has recorded 300 millimeters of rainfall. In the Khulna district, villages, fish farming enclosures and crops have been inundated. Bangladesh's Disaster Management Ministry has said that over 3 million people are stranded. Floods have washed away road connectivity and isolated communities. Some 7,500 people have been displaced in the flood-hit districts of Bangladesh. They have been moved to 1,500 shelters. At least 13 people have died in flood-related incidents in Bangladesh. The World Bank Institute estimates that Bangladesh is one of the world's most climate-vulnerable countries, and it is at the risk of annual flooding.
Look around you. Even if there is nothing you see, surely there are microplastics. Some of them may be too tiny for the naked eye, but trust me, microplastics are almost everywhere. Now, even in our brain tissue, it seems, our brain is getting polluted by plastic. A recent study has just described the brain as, quote-unquote, one of the most plastic-polluted tissues yet sampled. Now, you don't need me to tell you how this could have happened. So instead, let me tell you a little bit about this research. It was conducted by a team at the University of New Mexico. Researchers studied the various organs in our body, the liver, the kidneys, the brain. Microplastics were found in all of these organs. There was plastic everywhere almost, but the brain contained on average about 10 to 20 times more microplastics than the other organs. And there's more. In the brain samples that were collected in early 2024, researchers found that 0.5% of the weight was from the plastic. That is how polluted our brain has become. That's how polluted our bodies seem to have become. So far, microplastics have been found in lungs, livers, kidneys, the knee, elbow joint. Plastic has also been found in human reproductive organs, in the bone marrow, in our blood, also in our mother's womb. But are you really surprised? Microplastics are in the fish that we consume, in the salt, and in the water, in the beer that we drink, in the fruits that we take. Microplastics are also in the carpet of our house and in the air we breathe. They were found to be polluting our body. So what next? Scientists believe that over time, the plastic in our body can lead to a cascading range of symptoms. It could be inflammation. There could be an infection. Microplastics could also result in cancer. A study conducted in the UK found plastics in lungs have caused irritation, dizziness, headaches, asthma, even cancer. So is this what we all are staring at? Will there be a sharp rise in cancer cases caused by plastics in our body? Some scientists believe that chemicals found in plastics can even cause ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The plastic can also cause fertility issues. In short, microplastics are red flags for human health. And the bad news is there are microplastics in our bodies. We now get you a story from southern Africa where the second largest diamond, A rough 2,492 carat stone has been found in Botswana. It is reportedly the biggest diamond discovered for over a century. Nearly 120 years ago, a 3,106 carat Cullinan diamond was found in South Africa in 1905 and subsequently cut into 9 separate stones, several of which are in the British royal family. As per reports, this new diamond was found at a mine owned by a Canadian firm around 500 kilometers north of Botswana's capital. Nearly 20% of all diamonds come from Botswana, making it one of the biggest producers of the gem. The diamond was allegedly found with the aid of a high-resolution X-ray technology machine to ensure it is intact and does not break during the ore crushing processes. No official details have been shared so far about the diamond's value, but reports suggest that it may be in excess of $40 million. Botswana's previous major diamond, found in 2019, nearly 30% smaller in size as compared to this one. It was purchased by the French fashion brand Louis Vuitton. Let's see who bids for this new diamond, if at all. Are we alone in this universe? For centuries now, this question has perplexed scientists, captured our collective attention and fueled countless narratives. While some say that aliens do exist, others say that they are already here and are being kept a secret. Every few years, someone will add fuel to this fire. Well, today we have another account that is fanning the flames of this narrative. In a recent revelation, former Defense Department insider Luis Elizondo has alleged that the US government is hiding the truth about unidentified flying objects for over 50 years. Elizondo says he began seeing green glowing orbs floating in the skies. That experience has made him uniquely qualified to speculate on what exactly the unexplained objects might have been. At the time of the sightings, Elizondo said he was a senior defense official serving as director of Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, also known as AATIP. He says that his wife was a complete skeptic until she also saw an orb above their house. Here's some background now on Elizondo. Before he was recruited into the AATIP in 2009, Elizondo worked 4 years as a high-ranking military intelligence officer. He has served in Kuwait and Afghanistan. Before running anti-terrorism missions against the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, Elizondo, who ran highly classified programs for the White House as well as the National Security Agency, described his experience, saying that he saw a green glowing ball, probably about the size of a basketball, floating down slowly from the kitchen to the bedroom door and then disappearing into a wall. In his memoir, Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, Elizondo reveals the existence of a secretive group involving government officials and defense contractors, he claims. According to him, this group has been retrieving technology and biological remains of non-human origin for over 50 years. 50 years. Elizondo claims that 4 deceased non-human bodies were recovered from the Roswell crash, and he discusses how the US government responded to this and similar incidents. He also mentions other events where non-human cadavers were retrieved. Elizondo's disclosure, supported by videos and testimony from Navy pilots, is what led to the congressional inquiries and a House of Congress hearing in the year 2023, where Major David Grosh testified about the federal government's recovery of non-human biologics. He writes all this in his book. It offers an insider account, in a way, into how the US Department of Defense understands UFOs, at least as per the claims. Also, Elizondo claims that his team's research was frequently hindered by senior officials within the Defense Department. He suggests that the defense establishment is hesitant to acknowledge an issue it cannot comprehend or resolve. Elizondo has described the capabilities of these unidentified visitors as a very serious national security issue. Concerned about the potential threat of these UFOs, Elizondo resigned from the Defense Department. He chose to disclose much of his knowledge about these advanced vehicles, even though parts of his book have been redacted. He says that he is apprehensive that the Defense Department may never really fully reveal what it knows about UFOs. Now, here's why this matters. The US government's stance on the potential existence of extraterrestrial life has been ambiguous. So far, National Security Council spokesman John Kirby has stated that the government does not have definitive answers about the numerous sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena. And as a result, several US Congress members have demanded transparency about an alleged secret UFO program. So what's the true story here? We may never come to know. As for Elizondo, he still holds the highest security clearances and he continues to consult the government, for the government. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
Shortly after declaring it a global emergency, the World Health Organization is rushing to find vaccines to control the spread of Mpox as other countries, including Sudan, declare another problem, cholera. Anger and protests spread in Tunisia over the detention of several opposition figures and critics of the president, despite the country's election commission declaring October 6th as the polling day, with Kais Saied running for a new term. And Ethiopia's traditional sauna therapy gains big city popularity, with Addis Ababans creating a buzz on social media about the benefits. World of Africa at these times on WION.
Ukraine's grinding counter-offensive continues. Russia advances in Pokrovsk amid Ukraine's gains. Will Zelensky's buffer zone tactic pay off, or has Ukraine walked into Putin's trap? Continuous coverage on WION.
Ends on a high note.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Harris becomes the presidential nominee.
I accept your nomination.
Kamala strikes a personal chord.
But my mother never lost her cool, never complained about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it.
Democratic presidential nominee takes on Trump.
In the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand and I know where the United States belongs.
All the latest Ground Zero updates here on WION World is One.
This week on Inside South Asia, the Kolkata rape and murder exposes failures on many fronts. From the horrific crime against women to the attempted cover-up by authorities. Will justice be delivered? A new administration is in place in Bangladesh. We take a look at the social, economical, and political changes in the country. Witness the rich culture and tradition of Sri Lanka's Temple of the Truth procession in Kandy.